Hi guys, it's Owen and Max from MTG Gamers, and this is our first episode of the MTG Gamers podcast.
It's a podcast even though we're just posting it on YouTube.
Today we'll be talking about the leaks from Core Set 21.
The first section we're going to be talking about is cards that we think are really good from this new set. So the first card that we're going to be talking about is a card that I think is going to be really good, and it's called Peer into the Abyss. It's 7 mana, it costs 3 black and 4 generic for a sorcery that says target player draws cards equal to half the number of cards in their library and loses half their life, round up each time. So I think this is good because there's a couple different ways this could be used. This could be used just as card draw if you really need specific cards for like a combo deck or something. This could essentially, in a way, be used as to like mill the opponent's half their deck. And if you choose that, they also lose half their life.
The next card I think is really good is Chromatic Orrery. It's a 7 mana legendary artifact, and you can spend mana, and when it's on the battlefield, you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color. It also taps to add 5 colorless mana, and you can pay 5 mana and tap it to draw a card for each color among permanents you control. So this card is really good in a multicolored deck, mainly 5-color deck where you need to fix your mana, and it can also draw cards.
The next card that I think is going to be really good is Indulging Partisan. It is a 3 mana, 1 white, 1 black, 1 generic for a 1/4 with flying and lifelink. And at the beginning of your end step, if you gained 3 or more life this turn, each opponent loses 3 life. I think this is going to be good in Commander because there are some vampire tribal decks that ultimately end up gaining life, and that can be a good way to get damage in, especially since it's each opponent. And I also think it might be able to be used in mono-white standard decks that just get like a lifelink guy and suit it up with some Sentinel's Eyes to make it a 3/3. And this could be a really good turn 3 play that could like add up to be doing 3 extra damage each turn.
The next card I think is really good is Quirion Druid. It might not seem good at first, but it's only 2 mana, and whenever you cast a spell that's any color besides green, you put a 1/1 counter on it. So in pretty much any multicolored deck, it can get big really fast and forces your opponent to deal with it.
So the next card that I think is going to be really good is the basic Island. I say specifically Island because that's the only art that's been leaked yet. But hopefully, based on this, the other ones are going to be just as good. The art looks so cool. The fact that it's gray around the edge and blue in the middle, super cool. Also, just the art with like the sunrise and the big pool in the middle looks really cool. And the fact that where all the words and stuff are, it's like fragments. It just looks so cool. And the actual island symbol just like is like a amazing shade of blue, and I just love it.
Okay, the next card I'm going to be talking about is Jeskai Elder. This is another card that might not seem very good. It's a 2 mana 1/2 with prowess, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card and discard a card. Well, so it's good in a lot of decks that play multiple spells a turn because it can be kind of big, and if it's too big, your opponents won't block it, and that'll force you to draw a card and discard a card.
The next card that I think is going to be really good is Teferi, Master of Time. It is a 4 mana planeswalker, 2 blue and 2 generic, and it's a legendary planeswalker that starts at 3 loyalty, and its like passive ability is you can activate the loyalty abilities of Teferi, Master of Time on any player's turn. At any time you could cast a sorcery. Its +1 is draw a card, discard a card. Its -3 is target creature you control phases out. So it basically, like, until that creature's next turn, it just pretty much leaves the game. And its -10 ultimate is you take 2 extra turns after this, which is super good if you can get it to that. And I think this is good because there are already modern decks and decks that like just meant to play a planeswalker and then immediately get it to ultimate. And the decks like that have planeswalkers that ultimates aren't even as good as this. Like if you can get to this, you can take 2 extra turns, and those 2 extra turns, if your deck is based around proliferating, you can get it up to the ultimate by those 2 turns. And so for that reason, I think this card is super good, especially since you can activate at instant speed. So you can like pretty much remove a creature with its -3 at instant speed.
The next card I'm going to be talking about is Spark Hunter Masticore. It's a 3-mana 3/4. As an additional cost, you have to discard a card. It has protection from planeswalkers, which is really good because in this set there's a lot of planeswalkers, and you can pay 1 to deal 1 damage to target planeswalker, and it protects itself for 3 mana, and it's just really good against planeswalkers.
So the next section of this is going to be cards that we think are going to be specifically good in Commander. And the first one is Mangara the Diplomat. It is 4 mana, 1 white, and 3 generic for a 2/4 with lifelink, legendary creature. So it can be your commander, and whenever an opponent attacks with creatures, if 2 or more of those creatures are attacking at you or a planeswalker you control, draw a card. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you draw a card. And I think this is going to be good in Commander because like you're more likely to draw cards because there's 3 other people to draw cards from instead of just 2, and there's more people to attack you. Also, in other formats like Modern specifically, I think it might just be too expensive and you won't be able to get a lot of value out of it. But in Commander, games generally are a lot longer, so you could get more value out of it.
The next card we think is good in Commander is Double Vision. It's a 5-mana enchantment, and whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. It's really good in Commander because generally in Commander you have a lot bigger spells than in Modern or Standard or other formats, so you can get a ton of value out of Double Vision.
Also, it's better because you can copy a spell on each player's turn. So it's not just you can because normally you would only be able to copy a spell on your turn and a spell on someone else's turn. You can copy a spell on each player's turn.
Yeah.
Okay, the next card is Teferi, Master of Time. We already talked about it, but it's specifically good in Commander because of its passive ability that lets you activate it on each player's turn at instant speed. So you basically get to do 4 loyalty a turn, and that just seems super powerful to me.
Our next section is cards that we think will be really good in Standard. The first card I'm going to talk about is Teferi's Ageless Insight. It's a 4-mana legendary enchantment, and if you would draw a card except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So this card is really good in cards that draw more than 1 card each turn, like draw 2, or just any card that draws more than 1 card a turn.
And another card that we think is really good is Deteriorate, because in Standard, what's really good right now is a lot of aggro type decks, whether it's mono white or mono red. And Deteriorate is a really good cheap removal spell that can get rid of those cards easily.
The next card that I think is good in Standard is Tormod's Crypt. It's only 0 mana. It's an artifact, and you can tap it to sacrifice it to exile all cards from target player's graveyard. There's a lot of decks that have cards in graveyards and graveyard recursion, like the mechanic Escape, like Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, that's played in a lot of decks, and Tormod's Crypt shuts it down.
And another card that we think will not really be that good in Standard but could be used is Havoc Jester. It's a 5-mana 5/5, and whenever you sacrifice a permanent, it does 1 damage to any target. This could be okay in like the Gem Sacrifice deck, which is really high on the meta right now, and it could double up as like more than just 4 Mayhem Devils, so that you could have more of those. The only downside is that it costs a full 5 mana. So another section that we're going to talk about is cool reprints, cards that they've printed earlier in Magic's history, and they printed them again in this set. And the first one is Grim Tutor. This is a 3-mana sorcery to search your library for a card, put that into your hand, then shuffle your deck, and you lose 3 life. It's kind of just like a basic tutor, but I think this is going to be cool because, like, in Standard, there is not really any sort of tutor in Standard, and there are some, but not a bunch in Modern.
And the next card I'm going to be talking about is Eugene.
The one and only.
Ugin the Spirit Dragon. It's an 8-mana planeswalker, legendary planeswalker, and it's +2, does 3 damage to any target. It's -X, exiles each permanent with converted mana cost X or less. That's like its most powerful ability. It can board wipe everything else except for itself. And its -10 is really powerful. You gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, then put up to 7 permanents from your hand onto the battlefield. It starts at 7 loyalty.
That's part of what makes the ultimate so good, that you can get to it in 2 turns.
Yeah, and so this card might maybe be used in like a control deck where you just kill all your opponent's creatures so they have nothing to attack with, and you can just play Ugin and maybe get an ult off and seal the game.
Yeah, if you ever get an ult off with this thing in like Standard, you pretty much just win the game. The next card that I think is going to be a cool reprint is Azusa Lost But Seeking. It's a 3-mana 1/2 legendary creature that lets you play 2 additional lands each turn. I think this is going to be cool because, well, I just think this is a good card and I like playing it in my commander decks. And I think it's going to be a really, really strong ramp card in like Standard.
Our next section is cool deck ideas. So one of the ones that I'm going to talk about is Dog and Cat Tribal, and it would be, the main card would be Rin and Seri, Inseparable. It's a 4-mana legendary dog cat, and whenever you cast a dog or a cat spell, you create a cat or a dog, and you can pay 3 mana, tap it, to have it deal damage to any target equal to the number of dogs you control, and you gain life equal to the number of cats you control, and it's a 4/4. It's kind of not really like a real deck, but it would be kind of cool just to have cats and dogs.
Yeah, if they print enough dogs and cats in this set, that could be a really powerful tribal deck, and eventually that ability could be doing like upwards to 7 to 8 damage, and that could be powerful. Another card that I think another card that I think would make a good deck is Gadrak, the Crown Scourge. It's a 3-mana 5/4 with flying, legendary creature, and it can't attack unless you control 4 or more artifacts. But at the beginning of your end step, you create a treasure for each non-token creature that died this turn. This could be good in either like Standard or Modern decks that run a bunch of artifact or run a bunch of removal, or as like a commander in a artifact-based deck, because there are already red artifact-based decks, and this card's red. And just a 3-mana 5/4 flyer is super good if you can get enough artifacts.
The next deck idea that we have is Teferi's Ageless Insight in a Draw 2 deck. It's not really a new deck, it's just an add-on to Draw 2, but it would make the deck a lot better because instead of drawing 1 card each time, you draw 2. Our next section is sideboard cards.
This is mostly just for Standard since that's mostly what we play.
Yeah, so the first one I'm going to talk about is Containment Priest. It's a 2-mana 2/2 with flash, and it says if a non-token creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead. So this is good against like decks that generate multiple tokens, or just Jeskai Luka, which is like one of the top metagame decks right now.
And Jun Food, which is another top metagame deck.
Yeah, it's good in a lot of decks, and I think it's going to be in almost every sideboard that runs white.
Yeah. Okay, the next card is Deteriorate. I already talked about this, and I think it's going to be good in sideboard because you might not want it in every deck, because there are decks that it's not very good in unless you're playing against like an aggro deck, it's not that good of a card. Like against any type of control deck, it just wouldn't be that useful. So you might want to have it in your sideboard.
The next card I'm going to be talking about is Ruined Halo. It's a 2-mana enchantment. It's also a reprint. It's used in Modern a lot. It's when it enters the battlefield, choose a card name. You have protection from the chosen card name. It's good against a deck that mainly has like one creature or any card that will like win you the game, and you can just easily deny your opponent from winning the game.
Yeah, also it's just really good in sideboard because it works against pretty much any deck that you're playing against because you just name their main card.
Yeah.
Okay, another good card that's good kind of for the same reason is Necromentia. It's a 3-mana sorcery that says choose a card name other than a basic land card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles their library and then creates a 2/2 black zombie creature token for each card exiled from their hand this way. So this is good because basically you can shut down one part of their deck instantly, kind of like, but it's better than, in my opinion, that other card, Ruined Halo, because it's easier to just like destroy the ruined thing, and that gets rid of the effect, but this, it just exiles those cards. And the 2/2s really aren't that big of a deal because most likely they're only going to get 1/2/2. This is also specifically good against combos, which is also good in formats that aren't standard.
Thanks for watching, guys, but before you go, we have an honorable mention.
And it is a card from Ikoria. It's not actually from this new set, but it's Honey Mammoth. And we think this card is really good.